Picture a room, a nice room, clean walls, people in suits, people who smile at charity events and call themselves good, people who donate, people who volunteer, people who, at the end of the day, look in the mirror and feel okay about who they are, and somewhere in that room something is happening, something wrong, something that everyone in that room can feel, and not a single person says a word. This video is not about monsters. Monsters are easy. Monsters are comforting, actually, because as long as evil has a face that looks nothing like yours, you don't have to ask the harder question. The harder question is this: what makes an ordinary, decent, empathetic person, someone exactly like you, choose to look away? Part 1. The silence in the room. We have been taught that evil requires cruelty, that to participate in something wrong, you have to be a bad person. You have to enjoy it. You have to want it. But psychology tells a different story, and it's a much more uncomfortable one. Because the truth is, most harm in this world is not carried out by people who are cruel. It's protected, quietly, consistently, by people who are not cruel at all, people who love their families, people who are kind to strangers, people who, in any other context, would be the first to say, "That's not right." So what happens to them in that room? What happens to their voice? There's a concept in social psychology called the bystander effect. Most people have heard of it. A person collapses on a busy street and nobody helps. Not because nobody cares, but because everyone is waiting for someone else to move first. But the bystander effect only scratches the surface, because what we're talking about today is not a stranger collapsing on a street. We're talking about something you know about, something you've been close to, something you've seen, heard, or quietly understood, and decided in that moment to file away somewhere you don't have to look at it. That decision, that moment, that is what we need to talk about. Part 2. The psychology of knowing. There is a state the human mind enters when it encounters information it cannot comfortably process. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, but let me describe it in a way that might feel more familiar. You find out something about someone you respect, someone powerful, someone whose world you are part of, professionally, socially, financially, and what you find out doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with who you thought they were. It doesn't fit with your own image of yourself as someone who would never be around that kind of thing. So your brain does something remarkable. It begins to negotiate. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's more complicated than it looks. Maybe there's context I don't have. Maybe this isn't my place to say anything. Maybe if I say something, I'll destroy everything. My career, my relationships, my sense of normalcy. And so the knowing gets managed, not forgotten. You can't truly forget something like that. But it gets placed somewhere quiet, somewhere you don't visit often. And here is the part that should disturb you. This process feels completely reasonable from the inside. It doesn't feel like cowardice. It doesn't feel like complicity. It feels like maturity. It feels like wisdom. It feels like knowing how the world works. That reframing, that transformation of silence into sophistication, is one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms humans possess, and it is used constantly to protect the wrong people. Part 3. Power changes, what we see now. Let's add another layer, because it's one thing to look away from something ambiguous, something you could genuinely misread. But what about when it's not ambiguous? What about when the evidence is clear, the pattern is obvious, and people with access to that evidence still say nothing? This is where power enters the conversation, and power doesn't work the way most people think it does. We imagine power as force, as someone holding a weapon over your head. But real power, the kind that keeps people silent for years, sometimes decades, is much quieter than that. Real power works through belonging. When you are inside a powerful world, when your livelihood, your identity, your social circle all exist within that ecosystem, Speaking up doesn't just feel risky. It feels like self-destruction. It feels like stepping off a cliff. And the brain, which is wired above almost everything else to protect your place in the group, will generate extraordinary amounts of justification to keep you from doing it. Research on organizational psychology shows that people in hierarchical environments will routinely override their own moral instincts when those instincts conflict with group loyalty. Not because they're spineless, not because they don't care, but because the psychological cost of dissent, in a world where your belonging feels conditional, is genuinely enormous. So they stay quiet. And something else happens when they stay quiet. They start to need the person they're protecting to be good. Because if that person is not good, if what is happening is truly as wrong as it seems, then their silence makes them something they cannot accept. So the mind protects itself. And in protecting itself, it protects the powerful. This is not weakness. This is the human brain doing exactly what it was built to do, which makes it no less dangerous. Part 4. The role of empathy. Here's the part nobody talks about. Empathy. We treat empathy as an unambiguous good, and in many ways it is. The ability to feel what another person feels, to step into their experience, is one of the most important things a human being can do. But empathy has a shadow side, because empathy is not neutral. It flows in directions. And those directions are shaped by proximity, by familiarity, by status, by how much someone's face resembles your own world. We tend to feel the most empathy for people who are closest to us. And in a room full of powerful people, the person you've known for years, the person who has helped your career, who has sat across from you at dinners, who has a family and a reputation and a human face you've grown used to, that person will always feel more real to you than an abstract victim you've never met. This is not something to be ashamed of. It is deeply, profoundly human. But it is also how good people end up on the wrong side of history. They didn't choose evil. They chose familiarity. They chose comfort. They chose the person standing right in front of them over the person they would never have to look at. And empathy, that beautiful, essential human capacity, became the mechanism of their looking away. This is what makes silence so insidious. It doesn't announce itself as silence. It announces itself as loyalty, as complexity, as understanding that the world is not black and white, and by the time you recognize it for what it is, years may have passed. Part 5. What it does to you. Let's talk about what this costs. Not the people who are harmed, not the systemic damage, not the cultural rot that silence enables, though all of those things are real and worth a video of their own. Let's talk about what it costs you, because silence is not free. When you know something, truly know it, and choose not to act, that knowledge doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It becomes part of the architecture of who you are. It shapes how you see yourself. It shapes what you are able to say out loud and what must remain unspoken, even in your own mind. Psychologists who study moral injury, the damage done to a person's sense of self when they act against their own values, describe it as a slow internal erosion. Not a single wound, but a wearing down, a gradual hollowing. People who have lived through this, who have later, sometimes decades later, spoken about what they knew and when they knew it, often describe the same experience. They say, "I think about it all the time. I thought I'd made peace with it. I hadn't." The mind does not make peace with the things it buried. It just stops bringing them up in conversation. That is not the same thing. Part 6. Why this keeps happening. So why does this cycle repeat? Why, generation after generation, in institution after institution, in every industry and every country and every level of society, why do we keep finding the same story? The powerful person, the people who knew, the silence that lasted too long. The answer is that the conditions which produce this behavior are not accidental. They are structural. When power is concentrated, when one person or one group controls access to resources, to careers, to social belonging, the incentive to look away becomes almost irresistible. The people inside that system are not uniquely weak. They are not uniquely corrupt. They are human beings responding to human incentives. And until those structures change, until the cost of silence and the cost of speaking are more equal, this will continue. Not because we are evil, because we are adaptive. Because the human brain will always find a way to make the bearable choice feel like the reasonable one. Closing, here is where I want to leave you, not with hope exactly. I think you've heard enough comfortable endings, but with something to sit with. The next time you feel that particular silence rising in you, that careful, reasonable, sophisticated feeling urge to not say the thing you know, I want you to notice it. Don't fight it immediately, just notice it. Notice how articulate it is. Notice how many good reasons it has. Notice how much it sounds like maturity rather than fear. And then ask yourself one question: who benefits from my silence? Not in an accusatory way, not to punish yourself, just as information. Because that question, asked honestly without flinching, is one of the few things powerful enough to interrupt the process. We are not, most of us, capable of being heroes in the large dramatic sense. But we are capable of that question. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that is enough to change something. Even if it's only the room you're standing in, even if it's only the one decision in front of you, even if nobody ever knows you made it. The silence was always a choice. So is the alternative.